Hello and welcome to this edition of Diaspora Central Spotlight. I am Gil Ingles, and today with us, ladies and gentlemen, she is a miss, yes, with multiple titles, multiple pageants. She definitely makes sure that she represents the diaspora at its best. Miss Andromeda Peters. Welcome to Diaspora Central.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Now, did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it correctly. There we go. always making sure that we get the name correctly, and so that way we're not messing up. We can mess up in anything else, but not on the name, right?
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but do you really use your last name that much though?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like everyone always refers to me. I think because of pageants,
Yeah.
they always just say your first and last name together.
Okay.
I've got two last names that are a hyphen, so
Oh,
it's
really?
yeah, Osam as well. I have both my parents' last
Oh,
names,
okay.
but they just kind of shortened it too.
Oh, okay.
Andromeda.
So it's Osam that hyphen Peters.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you should always present it that way then. That's actually kind of like unique. Actually, even Andromeda is a very unique name.
Thanks. It's
Yeah.
one name that my parents could agree on, apparently.
Yeah. Which one of them pulled that one out of the bag?
My father for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to both have a really powerful name, and
Okay.
Andromeda is seen in like the Greek mythological stories,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also a galaxy. And she actually in mythology was an Ethiopian princess, and
Okay.
so it's very royal. I think it's fitting the older
Yeah.
I get.
There you go. And then your parents, what's their heritage?
My father, he
Mm-hmm.
was from Ghana. He was a high life musician, so there's a lot of rich culture and music that surrounded my childhood. So I just had a very blessed upbringing. And then my mother's side of the family is mixed
Mm-hmm.
with Native American, and it's the
Okay.
Wampanoag Nation and Blackfoot Nation. Those are our tribes.
Oh,
And
okay.
also English. My
Mm-hmm.
grandfather was an Englishman, and also Filipino
Oh,
and
wow.
Nigerian. So it's a big
Wow.
melting pot
There you go.
in my
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's like my grandparents and great grandparents. They're like the United Nations all together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, looks like you done your heritage then.
Not really. I
Mhm.
just everyone came from somewhere different.
Really?
So just
Yeah.
kind of something that my family's always celebrated were the different cultures that
Oh,
make
okay.
us who we are.
So you haven't even done your heritage state test yet.
No,
No. Okay.
no.
But that is good though, because then your family really knows their heritage because they're able to pull from everywhere and present it to you guys.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think, every grandparent has always been proud of where they come from and
Mm-hmm.
taught us to do the same.
Yeah.
And I always grew up knowing exactly where we come from and
Right.
been very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. So does your mom still play or take part in a lot of the activities from the nation?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Our tribe is up in New England, and that's
Okay.
where most of my family is, my
Mm-hmm.
mother's side.
Yeah.
Our tribe hails from Martha's Vineyard
Okay.
in Cape Cod area, but
Okay.
settled in various parts of Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we still very much celebrate our native heritage. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's really nice. Wow. That's a nice mix of several things. And what about from Ghana? How much do you know about Ghana?
Yeah, a very big part of my life also
Mm-hmm.
on both sides actually, because my grandmother remarried a Ghanaian before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So even though that side of my mother's side of the family was not Ghanaian, they still celebrated a lot of the culture. And I have my dual citizenship. And like I
Okay.
said, my father, I always, remember going to his shows a lot as a child and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how music plays such a big role. And,
Right.
my parents are like my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
So always a part of
Yeah.
all of our different traditions and celebrations. So I'm really proud of my family and
Mm-hmm.
what makes us unique.
Oh, wow. And your father is a high life musician, so he's got a couple of famous songs out there that you know of.
Yeah, I think if anyone's listening from Ghana or will listen, one of the biggest bands my father was a drummer
Okay.
and did vocals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really talented man. Sweet Talks, one of the biggest high life bands in Ghana, and played with A.B. Crensel and has played with a lot of major game players in the
Okay.
industry.
Mm-hmm.
And his time period was he started in the 70s, pretty young, and played throughout 70s and 80s, and then he came to the States
Right.
in the late 80s. So I would say that's probably the biggest. And there are some of the songs you can find on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and just YouTube and Sweet Talks, and you'll hear a lot of their work, and
Yeah.
they're really good.
All right. And what was his name?
He's known as the Bishop.
The
That's his
Bishop.
stage name.
All right,
Yeah.
The Bishop. So if anyone needs to look at any music out there, they need to look at music from The Bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how was that experience of you growing up with in a multicultural household?
It was amazing. I want to say, looking back now that I'm a woman, I really appreciate it more. I
Mm-hmm.
think as a child, my parents did a really great job. My
Mm-hmm.
mom talked to me a lot about, you know, you're this, you're this, you're this. And
Yeah.
like, it's really important to acknowledge and take pride in where you come from. My father just exposed me to a lot of our culture as well.
Indeed.
But I think outside of my household, sometimes a little bit confusing because, I'm showing up for picture day at Ankara.
Yeah.
My friends are wearing just like a regular blouse and skirt. And so I wasn't in an area that was as diverse. So sometimes it felt a little bit isolating outside of my home.
Yeah.
And people would meet my father and be like, wait, what did he say? And I'm like translating. And he's speaking English, but he had and I don't think his accent was heavy, but to people on the outside looking in, like a heavier accent or, different foods that we eat, people didn't quite understand. So as a child, it was like, it felt like I was living like two different lives because,
indeed. Yeah.
You're going out into school and with your friends or going to their birthday parties and then, talking about what you do for, a lot of our celebrations. And then even my Native American side, like there's not a lot of us as well. And a lot of us who, can really celebrate a lot of our culture because so much of it was wiped out.
Right.
Like my Wampanoag Nation, like our language was totally erased and they're just now sort of trying to bring it back and revive it in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, so many different moving parts, but I think it definitely made me so open-minded. I think that things that some people are sometimes have indifferences to or prejudices to, I've always just been very open and accepting of all people, I think because of my background.
Yeah. And I think I guess when one grows also that way, you kind of create some sort of a sympathy for identity, right? Because you really deal in a way you kind of manage an identity crisis because it's almost like you managing two different identities at the same time, because from the door in you are this child who is an African, a Native American, and then from the door on out you are this contemporary child who's just in America, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And how old were and how old were you when you realized that you were kind of different than everybody else, so that your background was a bit different than everybody else?
I've always known. Like I said, my parents did a really great job at talking to me very early about where I come from, and I was around so much of my culture my whole life, and I would see like how different each family looked from each other. Also, I'm a good blend of both, but I would see the difference. If I were to take one foot in the other, you would like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I've always known for sure where I come from. I think that as I got older and started talking to other friends, when you mature and you become wiser, you learn about where other people come from. And it becomes more of a celebratory thing. Even though I don't come from the most diverse area, I, for some reason, always had a very diverse group of friends.
Okay.
They're First Nation from, Latin America or from, I know it's a territory, but Puerto Rico. They have their own culture. So I've always had friends in my life who just come from different areas in a way. And so it was kind of cool, something that we kind of celebrated with each other.
There you go. Now, and you went to school in what region? In the Massachusetts area or?
Yep, my whole life. I was born and raised in Western Massachusetts, and that's where I studied and went to school after I grew up too.
Got you. So now, when it comes to pageants, of course, was that one of your first loves, or there are any other artistic forms in which you express yourself?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I never grew up watching pageants or ever thinking about them.
Yeah.
The thought of a beauty pageant literally never crossed my mind. The closest thing I got to a pageant is that my school I went to Elms College for undergrad. They had a Miss Elms and Mr. Elms. My senior year was the first time that they had it. And I competed in that. And it was more of like some beauty parts, but also a lot of personality and intellectual aspects of it. And I won. And that's the closest thing that I thought about pageant wise, but I kind of let
Yeah.
it go over my head. But
Yeah.
I grew up really in musical theater.
Oh,
I've
okay.
always loved acting, and I've always loved music,
Okay.
and musical theater combined a bit of both. And
Yeah.
I always really enjoyed that. And I started doing improv at 11 years old,
Oh, okay.
improv groups.
Okay.
It was
So
really funny as a child. And
yeah,
so,
so
um,
that's secondary
yeah,
school, right?
primary and secondary.
Primary and secondary. Okay. Were there any teachers or that kind of influenced you also that kind of played a role in
Um, I think I came in the door pretty
mhm.
hungry. I was in like the
Yeah.
first grade singing
Hmm.
The Lion King to my hope. I've always been very just
Yeah.
shy, but also still outgoing when it comes to artistic like
Gotcha.
expression.
Hmm.
But I did have a lot of musical teachers, and definitely my teachers and theater and
Hmm.
instructors taught me a lot. I learned
Yeah.
about a lot of method acting growing up, a lot about diction and public
Hmm.
speaking and stage presence
Yeah.
and camera awareness. So I took a lot of different skills and tips, and they definitely come from a very talented group of mentors for sure. And
Yeah.
that helped shape me into who I am today.
Yeah, no, definitely. And with that, let's go into our first break and let's go ahead and take a look at some images of Andromeda on some of the events that she takes part in. And we are now tuned into Diaspora Central Spotlight, and our guest today is, yes, Miss United States. We'll be right back.
It's time to see if these guys are in the shape that they present themselves to be.
Yeah, yeah.
My God, that hurts so much.
Get down!
So if this was a real situation, is this how you guys would have acted? I just can't do it.
I just hope that what she's told you doesn't diminish the spark that we could have.
I adore you. I see you to be like a brother, a friend, someone I can call, hang out with, have dinner, talk about anything.
And we are back. For those of you that just joined us, you're now tuned into the Diaspora Central Spotlight. And our guest today is Andromeda, yes, Miss United States. And I believe she has also been Miss Virginia.
Yes, I competed in Miss United States as Miss Virginia. That was my state title.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you were Miss Virginia first, and then you went to compete for Miss United States.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So now you were telling us previously, of course, you only encounter pageants in college, right?
After grad school.
After grad school. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's even after college.
Yeah, my first one, well, yeah, I guess you're right. My first one was Miss Elms in college, but
Okay.
I didn't take an interest in
Gotcha.
pageants. I was approached by a mentor to compete, and she spent years convincing me before I entered.
Right. So you didn't compete until you got to your master's. So although you got introduced to it during college, you did not compete and gain and win the title, excuse me, until after your master's.
Yeah,
Wow.
I did. It took me a few years of my mentor convincing me. Then I decided to do a few like local ones in my area. I fell in love with competing immediately. I think now I admit it to myself. I'm pretty competitive. Before that, I would have told, no, I'm not. I just want to do it for fun. But I was definitely addicted, and not so much in competition with others, but there's so much growth that you see within yourself as you're training. And I got really addicted, I would say, to that aspect of like watching all of your growth in all the different areas that you compete in. I liked who I was becoming as a woman. I always feel like I became a woman in pageants because I really grew into myself, because it's so much of it involves presenting yourself, and to present yourself you have to get to know yourself.
Right. So as a child, what was it that you wanted to be?
I would have told you I wanted to be a famous actress, for sure.
Yeah. So, and you did a lot of acting in there, right? Well, do you remember the first play or the first thing that you took part in?
Christmas pageant at church. I was the only kid that had her lines memorized.
Oh, really?
They were like, you don't have to memorize your lines. I was like, I can memorize my lines. And so
Miss Competitive. Do you still remember some of your lines today?
No, not
anymore. Yeah, because
No.
we like to test people. And I'm glad that you said no, because I was gonna I was gonna ask you to recite them. Yeah. So anyway, so you decided you want to be a famous actress, right? Which is actually, I mean, eventually you're still doing that because you're still pursuing that. But once you get to college, you kind of went a different route at some point. You studied something different, right?
Yeah, I've always known that I wanted to also music. I wanted to sing as well. And then later when I became a teenager, I got involved in modeling, and I started doing some local modeling about 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
And so my parents, I still grew up, I always say, like, very much of the West African upbringing of like here in the diaspora. I don't know about the rest of the world. You have to go to school.
Right.
And you got to go to college. And my family was like, and you have to get your higher education as well. After that, you can do whatever you want. So even though my father, you know, had his time in the industry and my mom's side of the family as well, they still really pushed me to prioritize my education. Like, my family never grew up like telling me like, oh, you're so beautiful. Like, they did, but they were always like, first, you're so smart. Right. You have a good head on your shoulders. Right. My father used to call me, when he was alive, his big head, which meant like, oh, you're so smart. And so I have always, you know, prioritized my education and learning more and growing. And even though now, like, I still am pursuing entertainment, I still will go back for my PhD one day. Like, that's something that I've always said that I would do. Right. So I was still encouraged to get my education. And at the time, as a teenager, like who had it all figured out, I was like, come on, you know, let me just go and be America's Next Top Model. And but I told my parents during the lockdown, I was like, thank God I listened to you, because the whole industry shut down during that time. But I was still seeing clients as a therapist.
Indeed. So your major was on psychology, sociology. What exactly?
I majored in psychology, but I still had a minor in theater, so I still did theater as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like making yourself full round, right? You gotta support the things that you love. You gotta do what you need to make sure that you make money, but yet you still gotta support the thing that you love, because that kind of rejuvenates you or gives you the I call it therapy, right? It gives you the self-therapy for you to move on to the next day still happy, right?
Yeah, like I always said, if I won a Grammy or an Oscar tomorrow, I would still have therapy clients, even if just a few, because now that I've kind of grown into myself, I realize that I'm still very much an intellectual person, very cerebral, but also creative. I have I have to feed both sides to feel fulfilled. Yeah. As a therapist, you're constantly learning. You have to stay on top of research and various interventions. And I also write different articles as well. So you have to really know your stuff and know your industry. Yeah, and it's the same thing. I take the same approach to the other work that I do. And I think both sides fulfill me pretty equally.
Yeah. And what schools did you go to for college?
I went to Elms College for undergrad, which is in Western Mass. And then I went to Springfield College, also in Western Mass, for graduate school. And I got my master's in social work. And then after I graduated, I took the exam to get my first license I call it a baby license, which is like, if it's the equivalent of if someone goes to residency as a doctor. So for 2 years, you take the test, you pass, and then you have to work as a therapist underneath someone supervising you. And then after that, you take another big exam, and then you can be independent. So I became independent in 2017.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow. So that's, you know what? I never thought about the process that actually takes to become a psychologist. So you don't actually do, I guess your residence is still there, just different in a different form.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I give that analogy just to compare.
No, I got you. Right. But, I mean, and that's, I mean, that's what it is, really. They just call it something different, but it's still a residency in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And prior to that, where did you go to high school? What was your high school?
I actually went to 2 different high schools. I went to Chicopee High School my second year until I graduated. And then prior to that, I lived in a different part of Massachusetts. So I went to Smith Vocational, which is in Northampton. And that was me telling my parents that I wanted to go a different route. And that was my pre-argument for not having to go to university, was I can just get a trade. And it didn't work out.
Did you try that, really?
I did try. And they were like, fine, you can go, and then let us know what you think. And I went, and just wasn't for me.
Right.
So I was going to go to a traditional high school after that. I wasn't being challenged. I had great teachers, but the biggest thing was I wasn't being challenged academically.
Yeah.
And so I ended up switching to a regular high school after that on the trajectory of going to university. So
yeah,
I tried. But.
No, I think for people who are highly intelligent, such as yourself, if you become intellectually bored if you're sitting in a setting where nothing of value is really being fed. To your brain. Yeah,
that's a good point. Even now, like I'm not in school, but I'm always doing research.
Yeah, learning. Yeah, that's part of intellect. That's intellect. Intellectual people tend to be that way. So now that you are actually, let me kind of rewind a little bit, because we went to high school. Now, what about middle and elementary school?
Yep, I went to White Brook Middle School. It's in East Hampton. And that's where I lived from age 11 until 15.
Okay.
And for before that, I went to Our Lady of Sacred Heart. It's a Catholic school. It's in Springfield, Massachusetts, from 2nd grade until 5th grade. And then I went to 2 years at Helena Elementary School, which is also in Springfield. I was on the wait list for this private school for kindergarten and 1st grade, and then it opened up in 2nd grade. So I ended up switching schools.
Okay. Now, do you come from a big family? You have a lot of siblings?
That's a really interesting question. So I grew up an only child, and I say that because as I got older, I learned that I had siblings. My father had children.
Okay.
Before he and my mom got married, they divorced when I was 9 or 8. Okay. But before that, I learned that he had children previously. I grew up only knowing about 2 who grew up in Ghana, and they, as teenagers, moved to Germany with their mom, who remarried.
Okay.
But as I got older, I found out that I had a brother in Ghana, a sister, and then a sister whose mom left Ghana to move to the UK. So she was raised in London.
Oh, okay.
So all my siblings are in different parts of the world. So I'm the youngest of,
3?
6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big family.
Yeah. But growing up, it was just me, and I always wanted to have like a younger sibling or a sibling who, I could share the childhood experience with.
Right. So from your mother's side, you are the only child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how was you visited the continent, right?
I have.
Yeah.
My first time going was right before the pandemic, actually.
Okay.
It was
how was that experience? How was that experience?
Yeah, it was beautiful. And right after that, I got my dual citizenship. It was the best experience ever. And I was like, I could live here. Like, that's how much I loved it. I was like, I could totally live here and be happy. I loved it. I went to Ghana and Nigeria, and I just love I love the energy there. I love the people. I love the creative industry there as well. It's so creative. Even if you just watch a simple music video, you'll see so much culture and colors. And, we really can celebrate our culture so loud there versus here. I feel like there's so much pressure to integrate. And I didn't feel that pressure there. I felt like I could just be my full self, and it was very liberating.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's take another break. Let's go into maybe we'll take a look at some images of maybe Ghana. Let's see if we can find some images of Ghana, and if not, we'll take a look at some visuals, some good visuals of anything that pertains to Ghanaian culture or to Andromeda. We'll be right back.
Welcome to My African Love. My name is Chris Atto. Here on the show, we're responsible for helping celebrities all over the world find love. Our influencer, celebrity, actress, and model, Afia Odo, is looking for love right here in the USA.
How about I get different guys from Africa and experiments? Sorry.
I'm on a mission to find my African love. Say I get the fiction to find my African love. Yeah.
And we are back. If you just joined us, you're now tuned into Diaspora Central Spotlight with Gil Ingles, and our guest today is Miss United States. Yes, Miss Andromeda, Miss Virginia also. Miss Pageant competitor. She said she's very competitive and she's won a couple of titles. So, but in all honesty, you are a very intellectual lady. Now, you are what I guess what they would consider to be a triple threat because you sing, you act, and you dance.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, I danced in college. I was in the dance team, and then my senior year I became the co-captain. So during the basketball halftime shows, my team would be out there dancing. I did some cheer in high school. Cheerleading in high school as well. And I also grew up playing a lot of different sports too. So I did a bit of everything growing up for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Now let's touch on a couple of two things that I want to touch on before we get into your latest project, of course. But one, the citizenship for Ghana. Share a little bit of information that may interest our users. You said that it was a very interesting process. What made you first want to acquire the Ghanaian citizenship?
I knew some way, somehow, that now that I had my first taste of going, that Africa as a continent was going to forever be a very big part of my life. And honestly, I was like, it's a lot of work to have to get a visa every single time. And I have a parent who is a citizen. My father has a Ghanaian citizenship as well. So because of him, having a parent who is a citizen and from the country, I was able to get mine. And now whenever I go, I just show my Ghanaian passport and the Kua passport so you can travel around West Africa and not have to get a visa for each country.
The region.
And yeah, exactly. And so that was really smart and wise. I knew that, I don't know how, but I just knew it was going to be a very big part of my life.
There you go. Now, one of the things, and I'm sure that you're aware of it, Ghana is actually one of the countries that has made the year of return not only something that they have actually been doing that for quite a while, because they do allow citizens of the diaspora, of the African diaspora, to actually go back to Ghana and be able to live without a lot of trouble or a lot of headaches in as far as legalization and everything else. How easy was the process of getting your citizenship?
I think for me it was, like I said, because I have a parent who, my father, when he was alive, he had a citizenship and he is from Ghana. So because of that, that's how I was able to get my citizenship. So they acknowledge like my heritage. But as someone who doesn't have that, I can't quite speak to that, how that would be for them.
There you
go.
But
I've heard that.
No, I mean, I'm speaking actually now from a perspective of someone who's just happened to be born here from a Ghanaian parent, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you went. How did the process start? You went to the embassy, to the consulate.
Yeah, I went to, that's exactly what happened. I went to the consulate and I just had proof of my father being my father, right? And then of my father's citizenship. And I had mine. So I actually filled out the paperwork back in around April, and then in September I was scheduled to have my meeting. They interview you and they ask you a couple questions, take a picture, and I walked out my dual citizenship.
Yeah, there you go. Now, one question just out of interest. Did you change your name to ensure that you had one Ghanaian name, or you already had a Ghanaian name?
Yeah, I have my father's last name as well, which is Osam, and my middle name Ejibra is also very much present on all my on my paperwork. So they see that and they're like, "Oh, okay, enough said."
There you go. So what tribe would that predominantly be?
Fanti.
Fanti. All right. Yeah. Oh wow. I think you are probably the first Fanti that I meet.
Yeah, we're Cape Coast. It's like from a smaller area, but we're out there.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Now let's go on and move on forward. Of course, you have done a lot of acting. You've done a lot of a lot of pieces as far as artistic work. You've done pageants, of course. Let's talk a little bit about acting and your latest project. Of course, the title of the project that you guys just did, it's actually a series, correct?
Yeah, it will be. So this is the first season, and then he'll have a whole new cast. Our producer for the next season, which I'm told that he's in the search for right now, but it's called My African Love. And it was really a lot of fun. It was my first on-screen project as an adult. So that was really cool, and I would say it really connected me back to the art of acting, because when I was doing pageants, you have to give up a lot of your personal projects during that time, because it's a year service essentially. And so it was after I had passed on the title, and so I was pretty much free to go back into the industry, and it really connected me back with my love of acting. And after that, I started doing private lessons with a coach and group classes, just to really get back into the experience of being like, you know, a woman out of school acting. And so it's been a lot of fun and has opened up a lot of that interest again for me.
Okay. And that was a sort of a mix of reality television and I guess scripted.
Yeah, pretty much, like definitely some scripting, but a lot of improv as well.
Okay.
But you know, you get your plot, you get the circumstance, the situation, and you're pretty much filling in mostly as you go. And like I said, like my background, very early experience was improv at 11. So I love improv. I could do it all day.
There you go. So give us a little bit of the synopsis of the series.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, Theodo, is looking for love. And at the time of the beginning of the series, she's pretty frustrated with experiences of dating, both, you know, in the diaspora and also in Ghana, where she lives. And she decides to audition 15 men to see who the love of her life is. So myself and Charlie Dior, another good friend of hers, help her go through this experience and fishing out, you know, the good guys to get to the end. And every week someone's eliminated. And you get to see all of the various challenges that we put them through, to see if they're a good father, to see if they've got a great business mindset, to see if they can protect her, exploring their values, but also a lot of their dirty laundry comes up throughout the show as well. So kind of helping her process that. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Now, was there a criteria for the men that she had to choose from, or
that's a good question. There was an audition process for the men. I wasn't a part of, I wasn't in the room for that, but they had to go through different screenings to see which men were appropriate to even make the 15, the cut.
Got you.
Be honest.
Okay, but there was no how can I say, no pre-requirement on where they were from to be a part of it. Did they have to be African or?
For this season, yes. That's why I really love this project so much, because, you know, most of the crew, all the cast, you know, we're all from various countries on the continent.
Got you.
And so it's really cool to see everyone representing their culture. So you'll see someone's name and you'll see Cameroon or Sierra Leone or Ghana or Nigeria. So
the heritage had to be from the continent, from somewhere in the continent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is this one of those cases in which the parents of the young lady maybe prefer her to marry an African versus any other heritage, or? You
know, her mom does give her opinion a bit in the beginning of this series. I won't give away too much. And her uncle, they do give their 2 cents in, and I think traditionally, yes, like our parents want us to find love a lot of times in very traditional ways.
Right.
But millennial and Gen Zs, like, our world is very different from our parents' world.
That is correct.
You know, they a lot of adjusting to this whole experience of, you know, people find love on reality TV every day. People find love through online dating. And so I think it brings in like the experience now of what it's like to date as a young person, but also as an African, because there's so much that you're trying to keep on your checklist of how, you know, their cultural involvement, their connection to their heritage, but also like being able to meet you as a woman. In this day and age, which is also different from how it was from our parents and grandparents and aunties. And so I use the phrase a lot in the show, a modern African woman, because a lot of us are working and have careers and getting our education and wanting to do that. And there's nothing wrong with being at home as well. Like, I really value that, like, you know, being home with your children. But also some women still want to work and still create their own legacy as well, just like their husbands. And so I was also acknowledging that aspect too.
No, that is definitely a good thing, because in projects like this, I think it also gives how can I say, a little bit of confidence to young ladies who actually are probably either approaching that stage in their life, or they're going through their stage in their lives right now, because they can actually see representation on the screen, or some sort of a blueprint that they can, I guess, tap into to even guide themselves as they're looking for love.
Yeah, I think so. I think, everyone is different. We all have our own qualities that we want. And I
Yeah.
think the biggest message for me is that you don't have to settle. You can have what you want.
Right.
And I hope that if a young woman watching can take anything away, or an older woman, some women are starting off dating or divorced and starting over. There's no time limit or age limit for how this has to happen. I hope it leaves that message that, you can have the things that you want. You don't have to limit yourself.
Indeed. Now, talking about the confidence of knowing and the understanding that you can have it all. Pageants, for instance, a lot of times they do end up with that bad tonality that because, of course, there are always there are some abusive people that get involved in pageants and sometimes attempt to take advantage of young ladies, and that's not every pageant, but there are examples of some out there that have done so. You, as someone who has actually have had a very good experience in pageants and has actually used pageants to ensure that it helped you become a much better person, what kind of advice would you give to a young lady that was trying to become or to get into pageantry?
Definitely, that's a great question. I think to your earlier point of, there is a dark side to any industry. Pageants are definitely not immune, and we see a lot. I think the more, unfortunately, we're learning about it in really sad ways about different traumas that women go through and have gone through. And I have my own share of different challenges. A lot of that's being more talked about and discussed in the media. And I think it's important so that we can, like you said, ask questions like these so that we can protect women and teach them how to protect themselves. Because, again, you can still have what you want and, go for your dreams. But if you're aware of what happens, like my father always spoke to me about the dark side of the industry pretty early. So I always knew and had a good head on my shoulders there. You know exactly what to do and what to look out for. So I think teaching girls about the red flags, if something feels off, it's really okay to absolutely trust your gut and validate that and speak to your support system, speak to your directors. If people are saying things inappropriate to you, I've always have spoken up if I had experience with different judges that didn't feel good. I've had conversations with national directors and my state director and my family about things that were off. If you're working with different artists and people on stage and everything, if someone is inappropriate with you, always, being able to set your boundary and use your voice, because we're not an object. You are a human being first. And no matter how someone looks at you, it's really important to know that don't have to be objectified or take that on if someone is objectifying you, and always speak out about it. Now, so the other thing is, pageants, we often see that as, kind of like a legacy of different women who are successful in different ways. And naturally, sometimes girls competing can't help but look at what the girl who won the year before did, or the year before that, and try to do what she did.
There you go.
But it's important to remember that when you're presenting yourself to the judges, you're presenting yourself, who you are. And I learned from this model when I was first starting out or pursuing pageants that people just have what they're looking for. If you're going into something where there's auditioning involved or competition involved, it's important to remember that you're like a shampoo. Some people like their shampoo to be like really fizzy, or some people like it to be aromatic or not. So it's like, are you the right shampoo at the time?
Right.
And you're still a good shampoo. Like you're still a wonderful woman and all these beautiful qualities, even if you're not what someone is looking for at that time. And so it's important to make sure that you're not identifying your self-worth through the results of any kind of pageant or competition or any kind of pursuit of your career goals or any other goals that you have in life.
Yeah, indeed. So with that, let's go into a very quick break where we can take a look at a few images of the new series, which is titled
My African Love.
My African Love, in which Andromeda stars with another young lady, and she's also from Ghana, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what's her name again?
Efia Odo.
Okay, Efia Odo, and we'll be right back.
Hello there. My name is Andrea Owusu, but the world knows me as Efia Odo.
Efia Odo. Heels and sneakers.
All right, Efia, are you ready for this one?
I am ready.
Okay.
Wait, I just want somebody who understands me.
Odo means love. I am from Jobbing Kumasi, Jobbing in the house. but I was raised in Brooklyn, New York. Living in Brooklyn was the best experience of my life. I mean, there's just so many different kind of people there, Jamaicans, Chinese. I do love Jamaicans, don't forget that. But I live with my mom, my sisters, and my crazy but loving uncle. More crazy than loving. And it's just everything that you could think of. Having an amazing family, going to school, working, Abercrombie and Fitch girl right here, and Armani Exchange. It's just everything, like I said, you could think of. Everything but love. There is no love in New York. Well, at least not for me.
And we are back. There was My African Love, starring Andromeda Peters and Effie Odo, both ladies from Ghana. Now, Andromeda, were there any other young women from other parts of the continent?
Yes, there were quite a few. There was a young lady who I believe her pageant was, I think, Miss Cameroon USA.
Okay.
So here in the diaspora, we sometimes have like African pageants, which they have different girls who come from different parts of Africa.
Yes,
and it's so cool.
Yeah, the community pageants. As a matter of fact, if you don't know, I am a co-founder of the Miss Tanzania USA pageant.
Oh.
Right, and also a founding member of the Miss Angola USA pageant.
That's amazing. I did not know that. So you're a pageant person too.
Oh, definitely. Yes. We produced, let's see, Miss Angola USA. We did produce a young lady that did go to Miss Universe. She went to compete to Miss Universe, right? And Miss Tanzania USA, actually, we did have a very good write-up in Tanzania, in which they actually suggested that the team that was heading Miss Tanzania USA should have been also heading Miss Tanzania for Miss Universe.
That makes me so happy to hear. I really love seeing how, how we do, like various women from various aspects of parts of the continent.
Right.
How we do in the international pageants. And
indeed,
there's so much mentorship and giving that I love to do in that arena. So I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, indeed. As well. Yeah. I think I really took it very seriously, because I honestly believe that it was necessary not only to help them feel confident that they actually had beautiful attributes that could be added to the global scale, because as you know, America up to a certain point did have a specific how can I say, blueprint of what beauty was, right? And that beauty a lot of times did not really represent the beauty of women of African descent. And,
yeah, for sure.
Right. And by making sure that we had these cultural pageants, or what I call community pageants, it really allowed us to give that confidence back to them, for them to understand that regardless of how they were still beautiful as they were, to the point that, for instance, on Miss Tanzania USA, we did not have a bathing suit competition, because that also accommodated the religious portion of Tanzania that is Muslim.
Right. I think that's really fantastic.
Right.
And I think it's nice that we can have homes, right? Like
Indeed.
Where we don't feel any kind of disconnection or pressure to compromise
Indeed.
on different parts of our heritage
Indeed.
to fit in with these different expectations. And, you know, I did some mentorship for the Miss Nigeria pageant last year, and the lady who won is beautiful, and she's also Muslim, and she competed in her hijab and still wears it and has done so many global things, just celebrating this aspect of her culture as well. And so
Indeed,
it's really beautiful to see us celebrating that now.
No, definitely. Now, we gotta make sure that we get you probably also involved either with Miss Tanzania USA or with Miss Angola USA. One of those two.
Happy to.
Indeed. Now, out of curiosity, we do need to bring you though to Houston, Texas, because you do need to visit the Pan-African Library, the SAID, Society for Africans in the Diaspora Library. It's
I would
actually,
love that.
yeah, and I think out loud, so I'm a person who says what I'm thinking because I just believe that that's the energy that is given to me to share. And what I want to share with you right now is that, in all honesty, first, the fact that you are a psychologist, and second, the fact that you are a scholar, I think that it would really add some sort of a value for you to probably at some point come in and talk a little bit about mental health, right?
Happy to do that as well.
Yeah.
I've been blessed with a platform after Mission United States to be able to do that. And so any opportunity where I can publicly educate, I look forward to.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate that, and I will work on that, and I want you to hold me accountable for that, to make sure that through said we do something in regards to mental health, because it goes very unnoticed at times, and we don't realize until the problem is already too grave to be corrected without difficulties, right? And what we want to do is maybe create some sort of preventive forms of solving some of these issues before they become too critical.
Absolutely. I think it's really important. So I'm really happy that you're wanting to bring that in and, you know, help people in ways that we don't often understand the tremendous impact that just having public conversations to have.
Right.
To that can normalize what someone is going through and make them feel less isolated.
Right. No, definitely. Now, the pandemic, of course, was probably one of those busiest seasons for you, or maybe the post-pandemic is now one of the busiest seasons for you, because I think one of the, I should say probably even a blessing that pandemic did bring is that people came to acknowledge that mental health was not such a how can I say, I'm looking for the correct terms, so rare to find, right? That and not only unique to specific individuals. It was something that impacted or could impact all of us. And at some point or at some level, we all dealt with it somehow, some of us better than others, right? So from your perspective, what is the one thing that you could probably just tell the general audience in regards to mental health? Some of the smaller cues that they could probably even find, and how they can go and get assistance or help. Just anything that you can give them to help them deal with it.
Yeah, I think the word mental health sometimes is a very daunting phrase. We think mental health and think, oh, mental illness or mental institution or suicide. We think like worst case scenario, and it's not the general public's fault. I just think that there hasn't been enough information out there to normalize the fact that everybody has a brain, everybody feels feelings, everybody has stresses and worries in life. That alone means that we could possibly have struggles with our emotions sometimes.
Right.
That's all mental health means. And so I think normalizing that is really important. And to also bring into the conversation that you're not weak for needing help. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not because you're not coping well or doing all the right things if you happen to need extra support in your life. And some people seek that support in various ways, whether it be through a therapist, whether it be with their church, whether it be with talking to their family and friends. We all need someone to listen to us. However, it's sometimes nice to go to someone who's trained in how to help you process your emotions, because people in our lives who love and care about us, they're always giving us subjective feedback, information that has to do with their own personal experiences and biases, which I'm not saying don't accept that, but always remember that that's where the feedback is always going to be connected to, versus someone on the outside who is more objective and has a lot of science and research to help you make sense of it all, and who also is trained to be open enough to respect your culture, where you come from, and things that are still valuable and important to you, is really helpful sometimes in bringing in this like unbiased approach and unbiased feedback to the different things that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so, there's different ways that you can seek that help. I can speak for being here in the States, mainly is, if you don't have health insurance, or if you don't have a job that offers enough, like looking for your state website to figure out how to get insurance through the government of the state is the very first thing. If you do have health insurance, going through your insurance and looking at different websites like Psychology Today is a really great search engine for finding a therapist. And sometimes it helps to think about the things that are coming up for you, whether it's sometimes I feel depressed, whether sometimes I feel anxious. As you're researching on this search engine, you can see that different therapists will have like their name and the things that they specialize in.
Okay.
And I always say that looking for a therapist is like buying a house. Sometimes it takes time to find the right fit. So to be patient with that process as well, interview people. You can always request a free consultation, which is like a 20-minute phone call where you should not be charged, where you can ask your questions and kind of like you're interviewing someone, because the therapist is on your team and you want to do your best to make sure that it's a team that will feel good for you. So we expect to be challenged in the questions that you're asking. We expect that you might say, not the right fit, I want someone else, and that's okay too. And we'll support you in that process too. So it can feel like a very big step, and it is a process, but once you are in that space, whether it's virtually going to someone's office, it can really work wonders in your own healing or just feeling supported in your life in general.
Yeah. Now, we understand also that that's something that can even be done remotely, right? It no longer you need to go and sit on that couch, kind of like they make it on the movies, right?
Right. I've only done most of my career has been doing it virtually. So
yeah. All right, and now let's hop back into the My African Love, right? The series. Now the series is currently available, right, for streaming already?
It's available on Tubi and also Amazon Prime.
Okay, and people can basically catch it just by simply going in and searching for My African Love.
Yeah, and you'll see the trailer come up, different pictures, and I will say it's very, very, if not anything, entertaining.
Very entertaining. All right. Now, you said that was your first project as an adult, right? Your first film project as an adult?
On screen, because my acting background is theater, which is very different, but it does train you for things like this.
Indeed. Yeah.
This theater, there's no takes. You have to get it right in the moment and in front of a live audience. So,
So on screen is it's a little bit more forgiving.
A lot more forgiving.
Yeah. and now that experience from your perspective, how was it?
I had a lot of fun. I think the really great part is just sharing space with so many people from various parts of the continent, for one. And everyone has their own acting experience as well. So everyone also, there was some networking going on. I thought people were giving a lot of the seasoned actors a lot of advice to people who were newcomers, and that was really cool. People share a lot of information with me about the experience of also acting on the continent. That's something that I hope to do one day as well.
Right.
I love Nollywood, and I think it's such an amazing space for us to just be who we are on screen. And I know they'll very much say that you're very Americanized, but it's something that I still think would be a lot of fun to be a part of one day. So it was really, really neat. And also learning a lot from the different individuals. Robert Peters was the director, and he really mentored me and continues to this day in terms of my acting career, but also my approach to the industry overall, and doing it in a very balanced and healthy way. So he's been very instrumental in me transitioning into this new part of my life.
Oh, okay. Now, is the last name just a coincidence?
Yeah, and it's funny, like it's Robert O. Peters, and mine is, Andromeda O. Osam Peters. So it's really funny. Right. And our birthdays are like 3 days apart.
Oh, wow.
so he's like my birthday twin.
So that's the ROP's, I guess, week or stretch of the month.
Right, exactly.
It's funny.
Yeah, just coincidence. It's pretty funny because my last name Peters comes from my grandfather's side, which is that Wampanoag Native American and English combination. So I don't know where his comes from, but who knows? Maybe we're related down the line.
Got you. There you go. And now, who was the producer of the movie? Oh, of the series.
Yeah. Kobe Maxwell is the producer, and he also has done a lot of work as a producer, and he's also a talent. He has an acting experience, and he's also a musician too. So it was really cool because he is, also giving us that mentorship from both a perspective of kind of leading the cast, but also having been a talent, currently being a talent himself and wearing both hats. So we're really passionate about the project, and I think he really pulled a lot out of us because we filmed this during the heat of the pandemic, and so everyone's kind of like, okay. He's like, nope, let's bring it out and make sure that you guys are safe, but I'm going to push you all the way. And I just feel really blessed to have been a part of this project and mentored in such a very phenomenal way.
Indeed. And you said that you are going to take part on season 2 also?
I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't quite know. Yeah.
There you go.
What that's going to consist of. In terms of the previous castmates. But,
so they
I'm not opposed.
Okay. Well, they haven't told you may be the one finding love this time, because did the previous cast member find love? Was she able to find? Well, I guess you can give that up because then there's no purpose in watching.
I feel like it would ruin it for everybody.
Yeah, it will. It will. That was
I don't foresee me going on to find love.
Oh, no?
Because I'm pretty good there, but I would be willing to be a part of it in other ways.
There you go. Well, I mean, never know. Maybe put them to the test. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I will say next season it's going to be a man looking for love.
Oh, next season will be season 2 will be a man looking for love. Oh, gracious.
That has been announced. So it will be a bit different.
Oh, okay.
So every season it will be a one-off.
Okay, so then you already gave us something to look into. So all the ladies now need to line themselves up and see if they
line up. Look for those auditions and go out there and get your African love.
There you go. And that's always necessary and fun. Listen, Andromeda, I appreciate you joining us. Now, do you currently have you written a book yet?
Oh my goodness, I don't know how you know. I'm working on one.
You're working on one. Okay.
Not an autobiographical one yet. No. I always said I want to wait until I'm a bit older. I think there are more things I can talk about a few years from now.
Definitely.
If I were to wait a little bit longer to do that. But I'm currently working on a book that has to do with just coping through life, like pre-pandemic. So it's something that involves a lot of different research.
Yeah.
But I think it can be very helpful because there's a lot of questions on like how to acclimate now that life is, we're essentially going back into the new normal, and how do we recover, from in a lot of different aspects that did impact us through the pandemic as well. So something I'm working on, and hopefully I can get through it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And also working on a mental health podcast as well that we're gearing up for and will be released at some point this year. So another really good platform to give different tips and advice to people.
Oh yeah, definitely necessary. And let us know if there's anything that we can do actually to assist you with that, because
thank you.
Indeed, definitely. And we can also even take that also through the library, to the through said Pan-African library, and really do that, because I believe that the community does need those kind of projects that actually give that. And if necessary, I mean, I can also create a space within the Diaspora Central Network to give you the space to do so. So remember, this is home for you, right? And on anything, do not hesitate to call and check. And if we can do it, we'll definitely do it. If we can't, we'll tell you that we can't, but we'll try to help you find someone that can definitely help you get it done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Indeed, definitely. Now, your professional title would be clinical psychologist, or what would that be?
Clinical psychotherapist.
Okay, clinical psychotherapist.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I did close with the correct title. So for those of you, for those of you that took a few times, actually, before I close it, let me make sure that I give you a chance to give any shout outs for anyone that you may want to give a shout out to.
Just a shout out to my family and friends. I feel so blessed in how many people just really showed up for me through really tough times and got me to a point where I am the person you see now, a more happy and balanced version of myself, finding happiness through grief and being able to heal in that way. So I share that because as a mental health professional, I think sometimes it's really important to humanize ourselves and share that like even we have a hard time sometimes and have to lean in on our communities for that extra support as well. So I just feel even social media, like different followers that I have been just so sweet and praying for my family. And so I just really want to express my gratitude and how I feel now. I did not imagine I would feel this happy again. And so I just feel very thankful and want to normalize that, like, seek that support if you need it. You don't know how it can really work wonders for your life.
Indeed, indeed. And remember, everyone needs a friend. And it's okay to have friends, right? It takes a village to keep us straight, and the village is here for you in case you do need it. We appreciate what you do, not only for the community, but also professionally. And As always, Andromeda, thank you for joining us, for taking time to spend a few minutes with us. And remember, Diaspora Central is home for you. If you haven't yet done so, please feel free to go and join our YouTube channel, which is Diaspora Central on YouTube. And our website is diasporacentral.net. And for those of you that also took time out of your schedule to join us, we appreciate your time. And as always, remember, take care of yourselves and of everyone around you. Until next time, peace.